Abby inherits an antique holiday advent calendar, which magically leads her to a handsome doctor, Ty Walker. As she explores her life with him, her best friend of years, Josh, feels left out. Abby Sutton works as a holiday photographer in a studio. She snaps pictures of happy families and tries to offer them deals. Her face only lights up when she realizes that her best friend, Josh, is back in town. He looks exactly like the backpacker he portrays in his travel blog. She hasn't read his blog in detail, but admits that she looks at the photos. The only reason she's still working at this studio is because it pays her bills. Her boss, Singh, reminds Abby that she needs to transport stuff for Santa's village. Abby pretends that the holidays and the idea of wearing an elf costume aren't a total nightmare for her. When Singh learns that Josh is not a customer, he makes him carry a box too. Abby gets a warm welcome from her niece, Corinne, who tries to dress like her. Abby's elder sister, Sarah, brings some spiked eggnog to help her get through the family drama. Abby's mother, Judy, is very particular and determined to celebrate the perfect Christmas. Her dad, Rudolph, offers her money in case she doesn't have enough for the holidays. Sarah works at the family law firm with Rudolph, so he always hopes that Abby will join them too. Judy thinks of photography as a hobby and hopes Abby gets a real profession soon. So much holiday cheer. Abby finds some comfort with her Gramps, who is making his famous chili. He has just shifted to a new house with roommates who don't let him play music. He's still glad to see Josh, who is a favorite with her family. Sarah teases Abby about him, but she insists they're just friends. Josh shares that he's back in town for good and is staying with his friend Fernando till he finds his own place. He helps them snap the traditional Sutton family photo. When the madness is over, Gramps gifts Abby her grandma's antique holiday advent calendar. It's their first holiday without her, and he knows she would have wanted Abby to have it. When it's time to wrap up, Abby wonders why Josh decided to stick around town. He has had his fill of travel photography and thinks he's finally ready to settle down. Abby is jealous that he gets to travel the world when she's stuck in a day job she doesn't like. She shows him a street with an empty building that she plans to rent as a studio space. It's still too much of a dream because the owner is demanding a year's rent from her. She can't ask her parents for help, but suddenly thinks working at the law firm won't be a bad idea. Either way, Josh knows she would suffocate there. She brings Josh to her place, which has photos of them that he took. A couple of new photos have been added from the times she felt inspired. She hopes to be as fearless as him and worry less about everything. Her Christmas wish is to have more questions about her future answered. Right then, the advent calendar falls on the shelf. Josh seems intrigued and asks Abby to open some doors in it. Abby assumes it doesn't work and asks him to forget about it. That night, when she's off to sleep, the calendar starts glowing. Abby wakes up on the first day of December to find one of the doors magically opened. She's surprised to find toy boots in it. Abby feels hassled at work because they're understaffed. She calls Josh and Fernando to help as elves with the crowd. They offer their services, so Singh happily assigns tasks. At their lunch break, Josh turns up late and gifts her a pair of boots. What are the odds? Abby loves that he was thoughtful enough to get something from Italy for her. On the second day, Abby wakes up to a Christmas tree toy in the calendar. She fills Josh in about this development and assumes that the calendar must be on a timer. Meanwhile, Josh and Fernando ask her to mark her non-magical calendar for the screening of their favorite movie in a few weeks. Fernando is too excited about dressing up, and they argue about which character they can be. On her way home, a Christmas tree falls out of a car right in front of Abby. Dr. Ty apologizes for not tying it up properly. Abby makes 3 jokes, after which they seem perfectly in sync for strangers. She even offers him some rope she keeps for roadside emergencies in her car. The following morning, Abby wakes up to a nutcracker toy. Abby wonders how her grandma got the calendar. Gramps explains that she found it in a French shop right before they met. They passed each other near Louvre and have been together since he picked up a book she dropped. Gramps always misses her around Christmas, even if she, like Abby, never liked the holidays too much. That night, at Corinne's Christmas pageant, Abby runs into Ty again. She learns that he's a single dad to Jess, who just happens to be wearing a nutcracker costume. Sarah knows Ty as the most eligible bachelor loved by school moms. She can't wait to brag about him flirting with her sister. Before they leave, Sarah reminds Abby that she needs to come up with great photos for the school's charity auction on the 22nd. Abby calls Josh home that night to discuss if the calendar is haunted. She explains all the weird coincidences with the toys. When she mentions Ty and how good-looking he is, Josh seems to get a little jealous. He still decides to stick around so they can observe the calendar in the morning. They wake up to a candy cane toy and are curious about what could happen as they work in Candy Cane Central that day. A little boy, Mason, who doesn't want to get his pictures taken with Santa, kicks Josh. Abby tries to save him from the toppling candy canes and gets crushed under them. This leads her straight to Dr. Ty's clinic, who prescribes a drug and also asks her out for a drink. When she shares this with Josh, Fernando wonders why he's not the main guy in her life. Josh knows he's stuck in the friend zone for now. For their date, Ty takes her in a trolley to the nearest cafe. Abby shares her plans of becoming a proper photographer and owning her studio someday. When he drops her home, Josh feels uncomfortable as he watches them kiss. The next morning, when the calendar opens up skates, Abby decides not to check it. She wants to rebel against the creepy calendar, but Josh is more interested in her date with Ty. Abby likes that Ty is getting creative with his dates and is excited about the next one that night. As expected, Ty takes her out on a skating date. Every day after that, the toy she wakes up to is somehow connected to the date she has with Ty. Gramps hasn't seen Abby in a while, but knows about her dates from Sarah. Abby thinks the dates are overwhelming, even if Ty is making a lot of effort. Even after spending so much time together, she hardly knows him. When Gramps asks her to figure out if he's worth it, she thinks of him as a wise man. Gramps admits he always thought she would end up with Josh. Abby thinks Josh is all over the world, but Gramps reminds her that he came back to settle down there. Fernando and Josh remind Abby about the screening for A Christmas Story that day at 5. Abby has yet another date with Ty, but she promises to be there on time. Ty brings Abby to a homeless shelter and brags about his love for giving back to society. As time passes, Fernando and Josh wait for Abby outside the hall. While Fernando doubts that she will show up, Josh seems sure she will keep her word. Abby approaches two men at the shelter to take photos of them. When they realize she's with Ty, they suggest that he brings a lot of women there. They ask Abby to make decisions based on what she feels and not what she can see. Josh feels bad when Fernando sits in Abby's seat, but Fernando is sure she's not coming. Abby asks Ty if he knows the men, but he pretends he never gets attached as a doctor. Abby realizes she's late for the movie and asks Ty to drop her off at the theater. When she finds that the tickets are sold out, she sends an apology text to Josh. Ty doesn't understand why she's making a big deal. He thinks her friends should understand she was busy for a good cause. Abby brings him to her place, where he gets curious about the calendar. She tries to explain how weird things have been happening since she met him. She thinks the two men she met at the shelter are somehow connected to the three wise men's toys. He makes fun of her for thinking that the calendar is magical and controlling her life. Abby doesn't like his tone and confronts him about bringing other girls to the shelter. He asks her to not take advice from homeless people, so she reminds him he forgot to pretend he cares about them. Despite their perfect dates, they have never had a real conversation. She has realized she's looking for someone who doesn't judge her like this. Ty is offended she's breaking up with him over a calendar. She, on the other hand, knows it's much more because her Gramps must be the third wise man she met that day. When he leaves, Abby tries to throw the calendar in the trash. She stops herself and puts it in her car's trunk. She discusses her breakup with Josh, who offers to beat Ty up for making fun of the calendar. She regrets missing the movie with them, and Josh also thinks she should. But he can't stay mad at her for long and forgives her with a hug. Abby is called to take photos of the mayor's tree lighting ceremony since the official photographer has the flu. Singh introduces Abby to Mayor Patricia Martinez afterward and praises her as his mentee. Patricia thanks Abby for filling in that day and asks about the work she does. When Abby mentions she likes capturing the town in new ways, Patricia asks her to send a link to her stuff. Abby celebrates her big break and shares the news with Josh. He seems worried because while loading her card on his laptop, he got distracted by a family. While talking to them, he accidentally cleared the card. He's trying to recover the photos but is not sure it will work. When Singh learns of this, he fires Abby and asks Josh to take over. Josh asks her to not take the blame, but Abby doesn't want him to lose his job too. She thinks losing the card was her responsibility for trusting him. She's mad at him for ruining her big break, and declares that she doesn't need him in her life. For the next few days, Abby's couch and some snacks are her world. Sarah hates the pity party and asks her to stop pushing people away. She reminds her that Corinne worships her and that she needs to bring her pictures to the auction the next day. Abby doesn't want to run into Ty, but Sarah convinces her to get it together for Corinne. Abby cleans herself up and turns up at the building she wants for her studio. She learns that it might be getting sold to someone. Her next stop is the auction venue with pictures for Sarah as promised. Sarah asks one of her students to get Abby's donations out of her trunk. After this, Abby tries to look for Josh at their workplace. She learns that he also quit in solidarity with her. She gives Sai some pictures she managed to recover, so he offers her the job back. This time, Abby asserts that she needs a change. Corinne is proud of Abby's photos on display at the auction. Her parents also finally realize that photography is not just a hobby for her. Sarah has also included a photo session with Abby in the auction and is excited about all the bids. Gramps knows something is bothering her, so Abby admits that she wants to share her success with Josh. Gramps asks her not to give up on their friendship yet, even if she thinks it's late. In the meantime, Abby tries to do another mature thing by confronting Ty. She assures him that he's a good guy, and she had fun with him. Ty admits he was out of line when he made fun of her, and they parted ways peacefully. Abby calls Fernando to ask about Josh. Fernando gathers some clues to decipher that Josh is probably visiting his parents in Florida. Abby soon realizes the calendar is missing from her car. She thinks it must have come to the auction with the other donations. Sarah helps her look for it, but she can only find a receipt from an anonymous buyer. Abby leaves an apology message for Josh admitting that she has been a bad friend. She still asks him to forgive her and come back into her life. One day she gets a call from the mayor, who doesn't care about the tree lighting fiasco. Patricia has won the bid for a photo session with her and asks Abby to drop by that day. Abby comes over and happily snaps their family Christmas photos. Patricia already loves Abby's work from the auction and is hoping to collaborate with her more often. Abby admits to Gramps that she lost the calendar. He strongly believes that it will find its way back. He knows that her grandma wanted Abby to have it because she also tends to pick the hardest path. She knew Abby would need the extra help when the time came. Abby doesn't think that's true, but Gramps is sure she will understand. When she gets back home, she finds the calendar on her doorstep. She starts remembering all the things that happened in the last month and realizes that Josh was a huge part of it. Abby asks Gramps if he has anything to do with the calendar. He kind of admits that Josh sent it back to her since he's in town. Gramps thinks the calendar could be magic or fate depending on the situation. When Abby is fiddling with the calendar, she finds a message. She turns up at the place she wanted to buy as her studio. Josh meets her there and admits that he came back for her. She feels bad for not realizing that he's the one for her sooner. When they kiss in the snow, Abby admits she got a snowflake toy that day. She gives him something, but Josh suggests they should get somewhere warmer first. He takes her to the studio and explains that they own it. He admits that he has plenty of savings, but he also got some help from her Gramps and parents to buy the place for them. Abby starts crying and asks him to open her gift. She has fixed the old camera he always remembered and finally admits her love for him.